I chose fame over the one who believed in me. Can redemption fix what I broke? The deepest silence I have ever known isn't the quiet of a remote wilderness or the vacuum of space, it's the quiet of my sold-out stadium audience after the final note fades. I'm Liam, 32 now, and I stand on stages before millions, a celebrated artist, but the voice that once gave my music meaning, the one who believed in me when I was nothing, is gone. I chose the deafening applause over her quiet faith, and now, the fame is just a relentless, mocking echo of the love I threw away. The terrible truth is that the person I am today, the one the world adores, is merely the polished, soulless shell of the man she loved. Before the billboards and the private jets, there was the basement. That's where Elara, 31, and I spent 7 years building a world out of nothing but old guitar strings and desperate hope. Our basement studio was cramped, smelled faintly of mildew, and was illuminated by a single, flickering fluorescent tube. Elara wasn't just my girlfriend, she was the architect of my spirit. I was the one with the shaky voice and the cluttered mind, she was the one who saw the melody hidden beneath the noise. She worked 2 part-time jobs, a morning shift at a coffee shop and evenings tutoring high school students, to keep the lights on and the cheap recording equipment running. My job was simply to create, a luxury entirely paid for by her sacrifice. She never once complained about the exhaustion, the financial strain, or the endless cycle of rejection letters. Her belief in my art was absolute, a clean, unshakable faith that felt heavier, sometimes, than any rejection. It made me feel simultaneously indebted and entirely secure. Our best work came from those quiet, late-night sessions. I would lay down a raw, unformed track, and she would sit beside me, her head resting on my shoulder, finding the lyric, the emotional truth that I couldn't articulate. We wrote together, a true, messy, collaborative unit, fueled by instant noodles and the shared dream of one day escaping the basement. She represented everything pure and authentic about my music, the grit, the honesty, the pain of the struggle. Her life, her simple, profound stability, was the anchor that kept my chaotic, creative soul grounded. I remember one night, after receiving yet another dismissive email from a small label, I decided to quit. I was defeated, convinced I was a failure who was dragging her down. I stood there, ready to smash my old acoustic guitar. She didn't argue, she simply took the guitar, looked me straight in the eyes, and played a raw, simple chord sequence. It was the melody that would eventually become the anchor, the song that would change everything. That moment solidified our vow. We were in this together, and my success would be our success. The turning point arrived with a thunderclap. A low-res recording of The Anchor, a simple, raw take we uploaded to a free streaming platform, went viral. Not just locally, but globally. Within a week, the basement was replaced by meetings in glass towers, and the stale smell of mildew was replaced by the overpowering scent of corporate cologne. My new manager, Victor, 50, a legend in the industry, was a predator in a bespoke suit. He was charming, ruthless, and utterly dedicated to turning my potential into billions. He saw the talent, but he didn't see the art. He saw a product, a brand, a blueprint for manufacturing superstardom. The contract he slid across the table was a masterpiece of legal binding and artistic destruction. It guaranteed the fame, the money, the validation I craved. But there were clauses that demanded a shift in my sound, a more commercially viable image, and a complete, professional control over my private life. Victor looked at Elara, who was sitting quietly beside me, radiating that familiar, steadfast calm, and he delivered the ultimate ultimatum without even raising his voice. He said my previous work, our collaborative, emotional work, was too niche, too sentimental, too messy for stadiums. He then focused on Elara. The industry needs a singular star, Liam, he stated, his voice flat. It needs a clear narrative, the tortured genius who overcame adversity. Not the codependent artist who relies on his girlfriend for lyrics. She's a liability. She's your anchor, yes, but anchors keep you from moving. If you sign this, you drop the anchor. You become a solo brand. That means no more collaboration, no more sentimental baggage, and no more messy past. He was telling me to choose between the life I shared and the future I fantasized about. He was telling me to choose between my soul and superstardom. Elara didn't say a word. She looked at me, her eyes wider than I had ever seen them, asking the silent question, are we still in this together? I held the pen, my hand trembling violently. The roar of the phantom crowd was already drowning out the quiet, rational voice in my head. I looked at the contract, the multi-million-dollar figure, the promise of global dominance, and then I looked at Elara, whose face was already beginning to crumple under the weight of my hesitation. I chose the ink. I signed the contract. The final, crushing act of betrayal wasn't the signing itself. It was the next day when Victor demanded I permanently shelve the entire collaborative album we had just finished, the one Elara called our masterpiece. I took the hard drive containing years of our shared work, walked into the office, and handed it to Victor, knowing he would wipe it clean. I looked at the drive, a physical symbol of our shared life, and felt a cold, terrifying detachment. I didn't even tell her I was doing it. I let her believe the songs might still be released one day. What would you do? Take the contract that guaranteed your dream but required you to burn down your emotional past, or walk away and remain forever in the basement with your pure art? I chose the fire. The consequences were immediate and surgical. My life was meticulously rebranded. Elara became a ghost, erased from the narrative of my struggle. I was presented as a lone wolf, the self-made genius who clawed his way to the top. The new music was slick, polished, and commercially impeccable, and utterly devoid of the emotional truth that Elara had always coaxed out of me. Elara didn't fight. She was too fundamentally dignified for melodrama. The day I moved out of the basement apartment and into the first of many cold, temporary corporate flats, she packed a small suitcase. She left me a single, handwritten note on the kitchen counter. It simply said, I believed in the real you. I don't know who this is. That note, now laminated and hidden in the deepest recess of my safe, is the only piece of paper I own that tells the truth about me. She relocated to another city, took a full-time curatorial job, and severed all contact. She didn't block me, she simply changed her number and disappeared into a life where I was not a variable. That was the most agonizing part. She treated my betrayal not with anger, but with quiet, profound removal. I was not worth the effort of her hatred. My fame exploded. I became Liam, the voice, a global brand. The tours were vast, the money limitless, the recognition intoxicating. I drank deeply from the cup of success, hoping the thrill would drown out the silence. It never did. The irony was devastating. The greater my fame, the more creatively empty I became. I could no longer write music that felt real. I tried to recreate the magic of the basement, sitting alone in soundproofed, sterile studios, trying to access the well of emotion that Elara had been the key to. But the well was dry. I had traded the source of my talent for the packaging of it. My new songs were hits, but they were hollow echoes, technically perfect but emotionally inert. Critics praised the production, fans loved the anthems. But I, the artist, knew they were lies. The applause was a lie, the adoration was a lie. I was a fraud who could only sing about heartbreak now because I had committed the greatest act of heartbreak myself. Now, 4 years into my global success, the emptiness is suffocating. I am constantly surrounded, yet profoundly alone. Every beautiful woman, every sycophantic manager, every roar of the crowd is filtered through the knowledge that I lost the only pure, real thing I ever had. I fly in my private jet over the cities where Elara and I once dreamed of having enough money for a cheap date, and I feel nothing but the biting chill of the altitude. I try to write, staring at the lyric sheet, and the words are meaningless. I realize that Elara didn't just write lyrics for me, she provided the emotional vocabulary I lacked. Without her, I am creatively mute. I have spent the past 2 years discreetly, obsessively searching for her. I hired private investigators, used my corporate access, and scoured every corner of the art world. I needed to see her, just once, to know if she was okay, to know if she still carried the burden of my actions. I needed her forgiveness not for my soul's sake, but for the faint hope that it might unblock the creative well I had poisoned. If you were Elara, knowing the betrayal, would you ever grant that forgiveness, or would you remain silent, letting the betrayer suffer in his gilded cage? The thought of confession, of standing up in front of the world and admitting the truth, is tempting. It would destroy my career, reduce the multi-million-dollar empire to dust, but it might, just might, earn me a sliver of peace. But even if I did that, it wouldn't give Elara back the years of pain, the public humiliation, or the pure, shared dream I violently terminated. Redemption, I realized, isn't something you can buy or confess your way into. It has to be earned through equal sacrifice. The final realization, the most crushing revelation of all, came just last month. I finally tracked her down to a small, independent gallery opening in a quiet European city. I stood across the room, hidden by my own security detail, watching her. She was talking passionately about a new installation, her face animated, her eyes bright with that same luminous calm I remembered. She wasn't alone. She was with a man, a simple, kind man who looked like he spent his life fixing things, not breaking them. He was listening to her with focused attention, the way I used to, the way she had listened to my half-formed melodies in the basement. As she laughed, a spontaneous, genuine laugh that reached her eyes, I understood. She was happy. She had not only survived my betrayal, but she had used the painful separation to find a life of true purpose, free from the chaos of my ambition. She had found a man who valued her quiet strength, not her potential to be a muse for his career. My abandonment hadn't been her ruin, it had been the painful liberation that allowed her to find her own true north. I turned and walked away, not heartbroken by her love for him, but utterly destroyed by the knowledge that I had lost her forever. She had moved on. I, the global star, was still standing in the wreckage of the basement. The spotlight is hot, the applause is loud, but it is all a cruel reminder of the one quiet person who believed in me, the one person I sacrificed, and the one person who became the impossible price of my fame. I am a success story to the world, but to myself, I am nothing more than a wealthy, celebrated ghost. Do you think a person who achieved everything they ever wanted but lost their soul and their true love along the way can ever truly move on? Let me know your opinion in the comments below. If this raw emotional story of betrayal, fame, and the corrosive nature of guilt resonated with you, please hit the like button, share this profound narrative, and subscribe to follow the next chapter of my haunted journey.